Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my podcast. I'm doing a live. It's a little after 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's a little unexpected, but I came across a video that has, of all people, JE in it. This video was created in 2016. And in the beginning, this video, the interpretation of it was a little, let's say, misleading. This person who we see on the screen, I think many of you can recognize this person as being the infamous JE. However, there's a story to this, as there is with almost everything else. Well, before I get started, I want to welcome Red. Hi, Red. Thanks for showing up this early in the morning. And Marie, hi, how are you? Marie from the UK. I'm on UK time, Marie, which is why I'm here usually very early in the morning. And then, greetings, Black Crystal Dice. Thank you for showing up. I'm so happy to see you guys. Hey, L. Constantine. Hello to you too. So, this is going to be, you guys clearly are going to be the first to listen to this because it is live. It's 6 o'clock in the morning, New York time. And then a lot of, I guess, most of the people who are on my follow list, which is slowly growing. I'm almost close to 15,000 here on YouTube. And I want to welcome those of you who are new to my subscribe. So please subscribe so that you can get an alert when I upload new material, which is pretty regularly. However, a lot of people will be seeing this from, later in the replay. So back in 2016, Kanye West, who we know has been very controversial, but he's also, through Kanye West, I think we can sort of agree that he shed light on the inner workings of the Hollywood industry when he basically outed Harley Pasternak. Now, I believe it's free. It should be free. And if it's not, I'll make it free. What happened with Harley Pasternak, who we know was his MK Ultra handler. And, there were some threats about putting him away, pretty much putting him away in an institution again. And well, Kanye, who changed his name twice, I'm just going to, I'm going to alternate, because in 2016, which I'm going to be talking about, he was Kanye. And then he changed it a little bit later to Ye. And now he's changed it again and he's Ye. But so what he did was, well, he's very controversial. Let's just say he's very controversial. I think most of you would agree. He put out a very interesting video. And in the video, he thanks the following people: Bill Cosby, Caitlyn Jenner, Amber Rose, Ray J, at the time, Kim Kardashian West, because they were married in 2016. He thanks Taylor Swift. He thanks Chris Brown. He thanks Rihanna. He thanks Donald Trump. He thanks Anna Wintour. And he thanks George Bush. However, George Bush immediately issued a denial, claiming that the person that Kanye West claimed represented him in a video. And I'm going to show you a still. It took time for me to kind of like black out portions of the body that I cannot show on this platform or any platform without getting booted off the planet, I think. Not just this platform, but without making me disappear entirely. I'm going to show you this very unusual, scary image from a video that Kanye put out in 2016. Now, the person on the far left, closest to my little talking head, is a close up. If you put the close up, it is J.E. At the time, he misrepresented and said it was George W. Bush. Now, I'm going to get to what George W. Bush had to say about this because at the time, he put out a statement. And as we can see by the photo, to me, it looks like J.E. So let me just get that other widescreen image back on. The person all the way to the right is Bill Cosby. And in the middle, next to his then wife, is Kanye. The video is very disturbing. I mean, I watched it. It felt creepy watching it, to be honest. The celebrities, which, by the way, include current President Donald Trump, and he thanks Donald Trump. And here's a photograph in 2016 of Ye with Donald Trump. They've been friends. Ye voted for him. He did some publicity for him. Now, well, yeah, let me just put this up here. Actually, it does not look like Charlton Heston. And these are the people that were alive at the time. So Charlton Heston by then would have been no longer with us. But thank you for your comment. So here, Robert Tideman. Hey, Kirby, hope he's okay. The photo is crazy. I can see Bush and J.E. It's weird. Well, it's actually J.E., but he tried to say it was Bush. So, but it's super creepy. So I watched it. As you can see, this is long before anyone heard about what was going on in the current trial with Sean P. Diddy Combs and the giant bed images that we have all seen subsequent to his arrest. Here is the very large bed, an enormous bed. Now, for the really odd song, which is called, I'm going to get the song title to this. It's called Famous. And he dropped it in in early 2016. It was the first time people heard it or watched the video was in March of 2016, specifically on March 28 of 2016. Now, it had a very mixed response to the song. However, it was nominated for the Best Rap and Best Rap Song, Best Rap Performance for the 59th Annual Grammy Awards. Now, when George Bush heard about this, he issued a statement. And he's like, no, that is not me, because clearly it is an ORGY scene, okay? And I'm going to read to you what the statement that Bush issued. And it was issued, like, he didn't even hear about it early. Like, this came out in 2016, and in 2017, Bush said, no, that's not me. And he basically was referring to the surreal video for Famous, which premiered via a sold-out event at the Forum in Los Angeles. So even though the song was out, Kanye did a big splash on it at the time that Bush is like, hey, no, that's not me. So from left to right is J.E., who is misrepresented as George W., Anna Wintour, Donald Trump, Rihanna, Chris Brown, Taylor Swift, Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, Ray J, Amber Rose, Caitlyn Jenner, and Bill Cosby. So the camera moves very slowly from all of these people, and they're clearly sleeping next to each other on a bed after an ORGY situation. Um, the image mimics the 2008 painting called Sleep by the artist Vincent Desiderio. And the aside from the fact that George W. said, "Hey, that's not me," and I think we can agree, that this is JE. Now, in 2016, I happen to know that there were attempts to arrest JE, and this was because Donald Trump was running for the presidency for the first time. And JE at the time was talking to a lot of people. We have seen this. We have seen reports coming out that he was talking to Steve Bannon. He was talking to several people, one of whom wrote a book at the time, and he sat down with Ghislaine Maxwell and basically wanted the dirt on basically Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. However, it it's gone unchallenged, other than the fact that George W. Bush came out and said, "That's not me." What was sort of like what took over and what the media focused on, meaning the mainstream, was that Taylor Swift was upset and that she was livid and felt betrayed over her appearance in the video. And all of the women are topless. The men are covered in kind of the right places, except for their bottoms, which I blacked out. And I mean, it's kind of like a really creepy, unusual. It's kind of like I watched it, and I'm accustomed to seeing unusual things, but it just was really uncomfortable, let's say, watching the camera slowly pan across their faces and then pull out to show everyone being completely in the buff, let's say. And again, mainstream only discussed Swift and the fact that if you guys remember when Taylor Swift won, you know, at the time Kanye West was like, you should not have won because clearly, he was for the Beyonce whole song and everything. But I am just really curious because there has been a lot of controversy regarding the fact that none of the documents that Donald Trump promised the entire world, at least within the United States, to get the vote. And I don't support the Republicans. I don't support the Democrats. I haven't I don't partake in the elections. From the time I was 17, I was like, you know what? I see what this is. I'm out. And then in subsequent years, when I became a slave to one of these, well, actually to one of a very good friend of both Clinton and Trump and JE and a bunch of other people, I realized, oh, I get it. And, I was a slave for many years and I traveled to Washington, D.C., and I was up close and personal with a lot of these people. I've gone into the whole thing about how Trump built his building with the help of my abuser's father and Aristotle Onassis. So I'm not going to get into that here. However, I am curious to hear your thoughts. So I am going to turn to those of you here to see what your reaction is regarding. So Robert, spot on with my name. Thank you. Well, your name is a nice name. You have a very nice. It looks good and it sounds good. And yeah, it looks more like JE. What do you guys think about Trump being in this photograph? Hi, little Abner. JE, Ye, and Trump. Yeah, well, if the shoe fits, right? A lot of PR work has gone into smoothing over the fact that the documents are not going to be released. Now, the fall guys are who? Kash Patel, who I think is, I'm really sorry, I don't have a lot of respect for Kash Patel. I think he lives in Las Vegas where PROSTITUTION is legal. He's a very weird guy. I've shown photographs of Kash Patel with people who were putting Virginia Giuffre down in a horrific manner. Um, I don't have much anything to say about Kash Patel. And when we think about, let's say, the director of the FBI, the person that comes to my mind at least, and let me know what you guys think, is J. Edgar Hoover, who was like from the time of his early 20s until the day he died, and he was already in his 70s, he was the director of the FBI, and he was highly compromised, okay? So, but before I move on with the JE and this stuff, I'm just curious. So, well, Nicole is not in here, although Nicole is part of this group. I mean, the group is not just the people that are in this sort of weird video, let's say. But what we are, I think you bring up a good point. I think the point that you are bringing up is that there's a lot of similarity in the facial features of a lot of the celebrities and politicians. And I think that comes from the fact that there has been a lot of inbreeding, so that, for example, Princess Diana is related to George Washington and a couple of other presidents. All of the presidents of the United States are interrelated with other very famous people. And then we have to think about something that most of us don't think about very much, and that's cloning. And I'm not going to get into the cloning issue because that's really a very deep well. However, I get it. There are a lot of people who do look alike. I'm going to go back to this image because it's just super, super creepy. JE is basically telling the world, in my opinion, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, that he's part of them, despite the fact that he's very outspoken. He did not know, for example, when Harley Pasternak, his so-called personal trainer, who we know is he's a handler. Let's just say he's an intelligence asset. He was very open, but he did not realize that, quote, his personal, let's say, he's supposed to be training him, right? So, but he was also training other people who, if we look at what's happened in their careers, and that list is now gone. And I'll pull it up for another podcast, and maybe we can go through the people that Pasternak had as his celebrity clients. But when Ye came out and said, hey, Pasternak is doing this to me, and he came out with the whole MK Ultra stuff, it put it back on the map, and that's terrific because most people were still unaware of the way celebrities are handled. And it was because of Ye stepping up and saying, hey, this happened to me, he's threatening me, this is illegal. And he said, this is what's being done to all of the celebrities. And so he opened the public's eyes to the control that is exerted over not just, and this photo, it's a screen image I took earlier when I watched it, and I had to stop watching it because, again, it was just giving me really weird vibes. He's telling us still that the control is not just over the celebrities, the control is over the politicians as well. And let's not forget that in 2016, when this was done and when it premiered, Trump was not the president yet. He was still just a businessman. He was just in real estate. So at that time, he wasn't a political figure, so to speak, because nobody knew if he was going to win or not. However, the control is exerted over, let's say, people like Leslie Wexner. And by the way, I just want to say, I don't want to forget, I had a and have a long running series on Leslie Wexner, who is one of these pipelines of, let's say, money to people like JE. And I put together a Merchant of Death. It took me a while to figure out what to use as a title for the book about Leslie Wexner, but Merchant of Death seemed appropriate to me because, after all, he's a merchant, right? He has these department stores and he has Victoria's Secret and Abercrombie and Fitch, and they all fit in with the cultural conditioning that we're kind of studying as we look at that video, very odd video that Ye put out. However, what I want to say about this is that I do have a sale, and the link is here in the description box below, and the sale ends at 6 o'clock New York time tonight, so you still have time. If you want to pick it up, it's stuff that nobody knows about Leslie Wexner. It's about the occult and all of that stuff. However, to get back to Ye and this very disturbing video, he was telling us that there is a layer above all of these people, including Donald Trump, who control them. Okay, that is what this is telling me. So I'm going to look at your comments now. It doesn't surprise me anymore, Kirby. I agree, Marie. I mean, it was disturbing to watch, but I think I agree with you 100%. Hi, BB. J. Edgar Hoover, I believe he was maybe, yeah, well, he was definitely gay. His lifelong partner was Clive Tolson, his second in command, and he made no bones about it. He didn't hide it. Yeah, I mean, I wrote several books, and yes, J. Edgar Hoover was not only gay, but he was a PDF file. So yeah, that should not be a surprise anymore to anyone. However, I think the point I wanted to make was that let J. Edgar Hoover, who was highly compromised, our current FBI, Kash Patel, who's, he made the promise, oh, we're going to release the documents, the JE file, let's say. Trump said the same thing. However, it never happened. And it's because they're all held, let's say, like puppets on a string by a higher tier than they are. So let's see. Yeah, has anybody here, please put a 1 in the chat if you have seen this video. Please put a 2 in the chat if you never heard about this. And this is the first time you hear about this video that Ye put out in 2016. 1, okay. 2, okay. So far we have, okay. Yeah, all right. So it's sort of like I see more 2s that you've never even heard about this video. I was surprised that I hadn't heard about this video until just recently. Yeah, same here. And you would think that with such a shocking imagery, you have Bill Cosby, you have JE, you have Donald Trump, you have all of these. Yeah, hello, yes. Hey, it's nice to see you here. You made one of my lives. Thanks for being here. All of you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we have more twos than we have ones. So it's new for many of you as well. Um, Rupert Napman. Everything is disturbing nowadays. TV, films, adverts, art, fashion, you name it. I agree, Rupert, and my analysis, and I've been working on this for several years, is that all of these things that you've just very appropriately named, they're all part of cultural conditioning. We are conditioned by TV, which is almost obsolete now. We're conditioned by all the films that we watch, and we have watched historically. We're conditioned by the advertisements, right? We're conditioned by the art that is produced. So, for example, I made a statement, and I will be going further into the fact that Andy Warhol is a creation of CIA. And that's true. And while this podcast is not about Andy Warhol, all of our art that we have seen, let's say within the last, I'd say almost 100 years, created as a psyop. And in order to manipulate our mind and how we think and to condition us to respond in a certain way. And fashion. And of course, that's the reason that I focus on Leslie Wexner, because Leslie Wexner was um, the person who funneled, and I use the term funnel for a specific reason, more money into JE and who made him appear as if he was a billionaire and made him someone that could be among high society. And that is why I decided to focus on him and go into what is unknown about him. No one, the stuff that I report in, let's say, if you're on my Substack and you have access to the entire series to date, or if you're getting the book or you have purchased the book, then you'll understand that what I share is not anything anybody else has shared before. I share about the symbology and I share information that no one has bothered to think. But merchandising, the way that he uh, became pulled, the way he was pulled into, let's say, this circle, because it's a circle of people that are selected. And he was selected for social conditioning purposes. So I'm going to go back to your commentary. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Just add a Q. So, hey, Marie, I'm 62 and I'm only just finding out about the things going on in this world. I have seen this photo before, and a lot of the men are that disgusting word. I would say men and women. I mean, we have Kim Kardashian in here. And for those of you who have not heard me talk about this, my abuser financed her. So the way it works is that they get the billionaires of the world who have been created, by the way, allowing them to become wealthy because they take part in intelligence operations. Then money is transported down. And in my case, regarding what I know about Kim Kardashian, she was selected. She was initially Paris Hilton's kind of like gal pal, helped her with a couple of things. So she didn't really. And by the way, I have a photo of Kim Kardashian back in the day when she was hanging out with Paris Hilton, and she had no curves. Like she's had so much surgery. Her rear end is beyond ridiculous. And it's to make women look abnormal. It is to change the way you look in much the same way. For those of you who remember the Barbie doll, and Barbie came into existence I believe around the time in this 1960s, Barbie is initially a German doll. There's a lot of German stuff that a lot of you know about regarding, let's say, the Bush family and how the Bush banking pals were connected to, earlier, even before HW. So even before HW, we have Prescott Bush. We can go back to Yale. We go back to Skull and Bones. We go back to the creation of Skull and Bones, which I do in my books and also on my Substack and on my Patreon. And we go into how they provided financing for the rise of Hitler, and how they provided financing for Sandoz laboratories, who created LSD, which then was used in the counterculture, quote, revolution of the 1960s, which again was infiltrated. So when I talk about movements that are infiltrated, like let's say this hippie movement, free love, blah, 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 dose everybody with LSD, that was to keep people from exerting their presence and keep people from, let's say, forming pushback against the Vietnam War. And then we see people like Gloria Steinem, again, infiltrated the women's movement. That said, I did upload a free, sort of like, I wanted you guys to become familiar with how operatives work. And I thought the best way to do that was to upload information on Gloria Steinem. It's free on my website. I wanted to make it free for everybody, because what happened 50 years ago with Gloria Steinem is happening today with some of the people that call themselves indie media. They have written books, they have podcasts, they have this, they have that. But once you become familiar with the pattern of what Gloria Steinem, and she's a perfect example because we know she's a CIA asset and has been for her entire life. Once you become familiar with the patterns, then you will not be fooled by people in the alt media who claim they're telling you the truth, but in reality, they're telling you a little portion of the truth, and they're doing something that's covert on the side. So my thing with you guys is I really want you to be well informed, because we are living in really dark times. They don't even bother to hide anything anymore. I think with this still of this video, supposed to be a video, music video. And I want to say something about videos and who was involved, and I'm going to share that with you in a second. Typically, something like this, they would not have been so bold, let's say 40 years ago, but they became very, very bold to put something like this out. Now, let's say when videos became a thing with MTV, Robert Maxwell owned, I believe, 60% of MTV UK. And I've shared that on my Substack and on a couple of podcasts I've been on. But I don't think, and many people don't know, so we see, let's say, photographs of Ghislaine Maxwell with Mick Jagger, who, by the way, is connected to the bewitching site. I'm using that, and you can replace that with something that begins with the letter S, as is the Maxwell family. And that's what I write about. I write about all these intersections and how they connect, because a generation by generation, the same thing happens, but they're getting very bold in our face, because I just want to answer this. Hi, Method. It's a still from the video that Ye made. So I took a still. I watched the video. It was very disturbing. And that's where I got it from. Yes, remember. Yeah, okay. So everybody remembers Barbie. And I have to buy your books, Kirby, to understand about the blood. You know, my books are great. My books were written about what I knew at the time that I wrote about it. Clearly, I know more now. So, to get the best, I would almost suggest you become a member of my Substack because you have access to a lot of the stuff that I now know. So, when I went into this and I started writing my books, I did a deep dive. In fact, a lot of my stuff ended up being given to Whitney Webb. And I'm going to plan another podcast to show you receipts about how her publisher, who wanted to publish my stuff, stole my information. But again, this podcast is not about that. And that's why she has a 2-volume offering. And I decided not to proceed with this publisher because the offer that he initially gave me, and I'm going to be doing a podcast with receipts because I don't want this to just be rumors or something I say. I want to always show you receipts for everything I say. Okay. Question. You know, French Connection Mama, I love your name, by the way. Is Hollywood done? Regrettably, Hollywood is not done. You know, they're going a lot into cartoons and into AI. And although we have access to being able to discuss all of this stuff, they're going to continue with their social conditioning. What I'm going to say to you now is probably something that you're not expecting, but it's an answer to your question, French Connection Mama. And a lot of you who are here talking about things, they've gotten us preconditioned, mind conditioned, mind controlled to accept the, let's say, the female to male, the male to female, and now we have all kinds of divisions even among that group. And that was done through social conditioning. And it's done to divide, conquer, but also to make women obsolete, to make even men obsolete, to make it so that we do not reproduce. They do not want us to reproduce, none of us here, right? Because we're inferior, we're nobody, we're nothing. This is part of the agenda to depopulate the world. This is part of what they have been working on for well over 100 years. However, the next thing in Hollywood, believe it or not, is to get us sort of conditioned into accepting being with animals in a way that we are not accustomed to being with animals. However, they are accustomed to being with animals, if you catch my grift. All right. Yeah, there you go. Because I'm like, and I'm saying grift because what they do is then they sell you on accepting to do a certain thing with animals. And then they sell you stuff and the whole thing is so perverted. So what I want to say is the church, the process church of the final judgment, for those of you who are familiar, is one of these, let's say, offshoots of Scientology that connects Charles Manson and Jimmy Savile and a lot of this weird stuff, and Son of Sam, so David Berkowitz. And they have, subsequent to this, changed their name to a very benign name having to do with animals. However, it's a cover. It's a cover because part of what they have done historically, and Hugh Hefner has done this historically, Roman Polanski did it historically, Jack Nicholson, who I have been talking a lot about recently, they have done things with animals. And so the grift again here is to then sell you animals on the sly, like they were selling there was a big thing with a certain online store where you could buy a cabinet for $10,000 where they were really selling you a child, right? Well, they're going to be doing the same thing and selling you animals or selling the public animals in order to do that weird thing that we typically have animals as pets, not as companions, let's say, in that manner. So I believe that what happened to the church, the Process Church of the Final Judgment, and the way they changed their names and now they're an animal shelter thing, is they're part of this long range plan to use Hollywood as a way to, again, scam you into believing, oh, it's normal. It's normal to do this with an animal. It's normal. I mean, they frankly they've been doing it for a long, long time. So the next thing that's going to happen in Hollywood is the Hollywood grift. And the Hollywood has always been a grift, right? They've gotten you prepared for, oh, World War II. They've gotten you prepared for the Vietnam War. They got you prepared for all the wars. All the wars, come on, we really know now that it's a psyop. It's just to keep money and substance and people transferred from one place to another. Um, so I love this, and I probably can't read everything. Why two comes three? People were gossiping about Richard Gere and blank, because you guys can read this. It's the first one, by the way, that starts with a G. And you're right. I live in New York, and I have a relative who was a nurse who was actually at the hospital, and I heard about it. And if you go to Wikipedia and you even just type in anything like this, it's going to tell you that it is a folklore, or that it's a fraud, or that it's a whatever. I forget the word they use, but they did a lot of and they continue to do a lot of work to make this go away. However, this has been part of what's been going on in their world, and now that's just what's been happening. Yeah, BB George, thanks for being here at the live so early in the morning, throwing it right in our face. Yeah, they do. But here's what I think we have to be aware of. Not only do they throw it in our face, but they do this to our children when we're not watching. So we can't see everything our children see. Our children maybe are playing video games that are perhaps a little too violent to condition them into accepting that the extreme violence, because now it's not just regular violence, which kind of began, remember, when we started seeing the Bela Lugosi films in the 1940s and the Frankenstein, and then we had more gore on the screen. So it's to condition not just us as grown-ups, let's say, but the little ones, and for generations. Method. Well, I thank you for the thanks, because this is a disturbing, this is disturbing stuff. Yeah, I agree with you, L. Constantine. Uh, I agree with you. I'm just looking at your. I'm going to pronounce your name, Sihan. If I have pronounced it incorrectly, please let me know. Glad I caught it live. I only saw that image on alternative channel and analyzing the dark side. Beatles. Do you know Mike Williams, Paul? Here's the thing. I don't believe the Paul is dead theory for many reasons. I do write about the Beatles, and I try to stay away from anybody's other thoughts and analysis about the Beatles, because I have my own analysis, and that's why I just don't watch other people's stuff. I watch stuff that from people that and I'm not saying that he's a bad guy. I don't know him. I'm sure that whatever he's done, He's done it from feeling legit about it, but I just don't want to be influenced by anybody other than myself regarding the work that I have done. Um, so here's what I want to say about chaos. It's a psyop. It's a psyop. Tom O'Neill keeps out of the book Chaos very important information about Charles Manson. He does not talk about the process church of the final judgment. Moreover, Tom O'Neill, who happens to be gay, there's nothing wrong with being gay, was part of the whole world that took him 20 years to write about. Sure, I write books, I do deep research. It wouldn't take me 20 years to interview, party with, and write a book. But if you read the book Chaos, you let me know if he's talked about the process church of the final judgment and other things that would connect, let's say, to Robert Maxwell. It would connect to Ghislaine Maxwell. It would connect to J.E. It would connect to a lot of things. A lot of these books that are put out there that are accepted by mainstream, he's accepted by mainstream. I believe his book, Chaos, became a #1 bestseller on the New York Times list. Be suspicious of anything that shows up on the New York Times bestseller list. I do not. I've written a lot of good stuff. By the way, my Substack has ranked, I'm in the top 10 worldwide. I was at number 7. I was at number 5. I haven't looked, but I'm scared to look because I don't know what I'm going to do if I find myself at the #1 on Substack. Substack is very different from the New York Times. I'm a bestseller on Substack in the history category, not in the conspiracy category, mind you, but in history, because everything I write, I include receipts for, and I go into the historical record and I show you how this connects to this, how this connects to that. But be very careful, BB, about who you believe, because what you have to wonder when you read about these authors who make it big and who show up on all of these mainstream platforms and who show up as #1 bestsellers on, let's say, New York Times, you have to ask, well, what are they leaving out? What are they leaving out? What is the story that they are pushing on us? And only by asking that do you then get a grasp about what you should be focusing on. Because it's always like, look here, don't look there. And so, I'm not saying that everything Tom O'Neill wrote about in that book, Chaos, is wrong, but focus on what he's not saying. That's what I focus on. What are people just not saying? Let's just see here. Yeah, thanks. Just wondered. I live in London, bumped into him a few times. He has a different vibe. I don't judge any of them, just want to understand the system. I will watch your analysis on it, learning. Well, I come to this having been an slave for a very long time. I did not understand why people wanted me to be unalived, but I understand it more now. And putting together this work is very challenging because there are moments I have to walk away because it's a little much even for me, and I'm steeped in it every single day. Now, my goal is to just spread awareness with you guys so that I don't think we can, let's say, rid ourselves of it, but I think what we can do collectively amongst ourselves is to keep ourselves safe, to keep our family safe. Our family is our extended family as well. The friends who we perhaps say, hey, you should learn a little bit about social conditioning. I wouldn't go in there, let's say, and start a conversation showing them this extreme screenshot that I took of Ye's thing, showing what really happens behind the scenes that he's a part of. He's still a part of it, right? He hasn't been kind of left out of the club. He walked in on Sean Diddy Combs' trial. He didn't say anything. We have to wonder, why did Ye walk in during the trial? And as we have just heard, as recent as yesterday, a lot of the charges against Sean Diddy Combs have been dropped. So let's see what's going to happen today regarding that trial. Regarding your question, French Connection Mama, do I believe that Ghislaine is in prison? I do. She's in prison. She's having an okay time. She's made friends. Remember, she goes both ways. So she has a friend apparently, and she runs in the prison yard. I think that she will be let out of prison. Donald Trump did want to pardon her, by the way, before he left office. And he was told that he could not pardon her because if he did, that she would still be facing state charges. And so he decided, well, what's the point? He did not pardon her. But we don't know. Is something going to happen to allow her to get out of prison sooner than later? I think, yes, that is what's going to happen. Sam 3 Artistry, never forget Virginia Roberts. I agree. It was through Virginia, remember, that we learned about a lot of the names that were not being public. That's who we learned it from. We got most of that from the time that Virginia sued Ghislaine Maxwell for, claiming that she was saying things that were untrue. It was the defamation lawsuit and those documents that were shown to the public and where most of the names that we discuss come from. Okay, so let's see. Catatonic, hi, nice to see you here. If they delete all of the, you know what? They have a lot of money. Their money doesn't necessarily come from us. Their money comes from illegal covert operations that we don't know anything about. Okay, that's where their money comes from. And we see that it's no longer just millionaires. These people are billionaires. So that when you see musicians, people in the entertainment, like it was kind of like more familiar to see a movie star make millions of dollars per film. But when you see somebody like Kanye, now known as Ye, I wonder if he's going to have another name change. Who knows? But anyways, being a billionaire, a lot of that money comes from the fact that they are transportationing, I'm sorry to use words that are not really real, other things, as in substance, arms, and humans. Okay? So that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. And, they just don't want us to be around. So unless you guys, so you know what, Peggy, because I'm going to ban you. So a comment just came up and I banned the person claiming that this is AI. There's a video. You can Google it. You can go watch it yourself. I named that video. And, anybody who wants to claim it's fake, well, then you're just a troll. And I'm sorry, trolls are not allowed. I kick people off who try to misdirect. And that is what you get for, like, the intel agencies and the intel apparatus has a system. They will go in and say something that's contrary to the information someone like myself, and I'm in a very rare position. Not only was I a slave in this group, to a member of this group, but I am an author, I'm a researcher, I'm a podcaster. I'm like, I don't know, I'm a threat on many levels, So I have a lot of enemies. And of course, I'm going to have a lot of trolls, but I kick trolls off because I just don't have the patience to let trolls stay around us. Um, so let me just see before we wind down for, let's see, I'd like to read this. YT Coms 3. Many video games, films, TV series are funded by the armies in various countries like Top Gun to encourage and inspire the young ones to aspire to join. Correct. So if you remember, Richard Gere, one of his early films, he was a gentleman, an officer and a gentleman. That film came out pretty early on in his career. That was, again, another fake thing to get people to join the Navy. So yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. All right, well, Sam 3 Artistry, hello, truth seekers. You guys are up early in the morning and you're like right spot on. You're like, you come in here and you're like, and you're like, here. And that's very good. Anyone that doesn't understand that you are required to use alternative words to stay on this platform needs to do some research into the banning of truth channels. Correct. Correct. I'd like to thank you for that because I get comments saying, oh, what, you're in Australia. Well, that's good to know. Okay. So, Bev Martyr, your insights and analysis are so insightful and informative. Thank you for all your work, Kirby, and stay safe. Thank you. Thank you. Marie, you've got a lawful lot of, who love you. Take care, my friend. Thank you for that. I mean, really, the goal here is for us to kind of like share how to stay safe. Watch out for things that are meant to deceive you. Be alert. Be alert. That's my goal. If we can save our family, our friends, ourselves, and spread awareness. Because to eradicate this, we're too far gone. Even back, I was going to cut this short, but I just want to add one last thought. Back in the day when Ted Kaczynski, otherwise known as the Unabomber, who was created in Harvard by an MK Ultra scientist. When he was just 16, they put him into this program. They created him, just like they've created other, let's say, serial unalivers. But even back then, when he was going to school decades ago, he said that this is really an unsafe world and it may be too late to change it. And initially, what he wanted to do was to spread awareness and not in a way that harmed people. And then, that changed. However, anyone who gets into a very high position of power on any of these stages, I'm going to call them, so entertainment stage, even, books, let's say, certainly politics. These people have been bought and paid for. So again, I'm not for the red party. I'm not for the blue party. I'm here. I'm sharing information with you. The fact that J.E. was in a music video done by Kanye West in 2016, and that hasn't made the news, that's troubling to me. And that they misidentified him as George W. Bush, who the Bush family, they're a bunch of criminals. So I'm not here to defend the Bush family. However, that's definitely J.E. And the fact that this is not even in any kind of news anywhere, it's like, okay, well, all right, it should be. With that, I'm going to thank you guys for having come in here so early in the morning. We're already a little bit past the hour. So I'm going to say, please share, please subscribe, please like, and until next time, guys, have a good day. Bye.